Hello and welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. Today I'm going to be talking about clearing statements. In the last video we talked about how you can use conversation to bring up an energy in someone's aura so that you can more easily feel it, so you can clear it using the techniques we've already talked about in all the previous videos before. But today we're going to go a bit more into just using clearing statements. So I'm sure you are well aware of how sometimes talking about something can clear things up. You know, you're not waving your hands around or using any of the techniques I've taught in other videos, but just sometimes talking about it can bring it to the surface and it will just clear on its own without you having to change it. So, you know, talking with friends, talking with family, especially if you're talking with the person you are having an issue with, or that may have caused an issue originally, can be extremely healing. So we're going to focus more on the clearing statement itself in this episode. And just like any form of healing, it can be more effective for one person than another, more effective at one time than another. And depending on the words you use, it may better bring up an energy more than other words. I know that on my written blog, which I really ought to write more on, haven't done much recently, that many years ago I did put demon clearing statements on there, and I know that that's been quite popular and that many people have said they've had quite big shifts just from using the clearing statements, not having interacted with me at all with my other healing methods. So for some people it can be a very big help. And again, just like any other form of healing, it can be quite sudden. It can be quite a quick and noticeable shift just from doing a few clearing statements. But for a lot of us, just like with normal healing, it can take time. And if you understand, you know, what is the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind, as we call it, in typical psychology, then you will know that the subconscious and unconscious is vast compared to the conscious. The conscious simply means the bit you're aware of, the bit of the mental field that you're aware of, the thoughts that you can hear. The subconscious is something that's on the edge. You kind of know it, but you haven't really fully paid attention of it. That's what we would call subconscious. And then unconscious is stuff that you are completely unaware of. So quite often with clearing statements, a bit like affirmations, which maybe I'll do a video on in the future, often repeating the clearing statement so that you gradually chip and chip and chip away at it. Chip and chip away at the belief or the trauma or the energy that's making you feel or believe or think a certain way is the way to go. And then, you know, gradually it gets better and better. So you don't have to be obsessive about it. You don't have to keep doing the clearing statement over and over and over every day. Sometimes that can be very useful and very necessary if you are feeling very traumatized, but try not to get too obsessive about it. It's better to use it regularly and often so that you really are getting gradually over the weeks, months, years deeper into the subconscious. So you really are clearing it and making it a permanent change. Of course, always be open to very quick and sudden change, but just bear that in mind about the subconscious and unconscious and how vast it is. So clearing statements can be used whilst you are doing other methods, of course. So in the last video, I simply talked about how talking can bring up an energy, but you can also use a clearing statement when you're in the same room as someone or distance healing with someone to bring up an energy. So a clearing statement might be more triggering for certain people, so it's more obvious an energy comes up, again, depending on the person. But also clearing statements can be used on their own as a legitimate method. And sometimes when I've worked with people who wanted to change their belief system, working on limiting beliefs, if you like, beliefs that stop them from being the person and having the life they truly wish. Sometimes I have done whole sessions over Skype, over video call, where it's just been clearing statements or talking about things that bring something up. And sometimes I tune in with my other abilities, my other healing abilities, and remove it at whatever's come up. And sometimes I just stick to the clearing statements because it's enough, because things clear on their own. So let's give you an example of a clearing statement. Say you have a particular disease in your physical body. You can simply say to yourself, okay, everything that's causing that particular disease, so everything that's causing the cataracts in my eyes, everything that's causing my IBS, everything that's causing my knee arthritis, whatever it may be, everything that is, I will delete it. And then as soon as you say the word delete, as long as you believe that the word delete deletes everything, all the energies associated, all the other beliefs, all the different traumas that lead up to that particular disease being manifest in your body, so long as you believe the word delete does delete everything, then it will work, whether quickly or, like I say, bit by bit by bit. And if you notice, that question is quite general, really. It's specific to the problem, but it's quite a generalized question. So I find general questions are brilliant overall because you're clearing more different aspects that could be causing a particular problem. So when I say everything that's causing my knee to have arthritis, I will clear that, delete. You're working on many, many different factors that might be causing arthritis. You're working on belief systems, traumas. You may be working on your posture, how you walk, the food you eat, how much rest you get, how much time you spend in front of screens, all sorts of different stresses, all sorts of different things that might contribute and maintain and cause knee arthritis. So general questions are great because you are tapping into, without realizing, energies and things and beliefs and habits that you might not necessarily know to question. So that's why general questions are quite nice. If you get more specific with your questions, I'm saying questions, if you get more specific with your clearing statement, then you are more focusing the energy of clearing on that particular thing. So while I might have knee arthritis, if I know that the arthritis is in a specific spot of my knee, or it's a specific type of arthritis, then I can focus my clearing statement on that. So for example, if the arthritis is underneath my kneecap, against the femur, so the top part of the kneecap next to the femur, I can say everything that's causing arthritis in the part of my knee just behind the top of the kneecap, I will clear all of that. Delete. So you're being more specific to the area. You could also be more specific to the type of arthritis, of course. So specificity is quite useful, but don't forget that general clearing statements that encompass more are better overall, even if they might not be quite so effective straight away. Again, depends on you. So I did accidentally say question there, which is a good segue into using questions. So while you can be very specific and say everything that's causing that astral parasite to sit on my shoulder, I will delete that and delete. So, another example there, working instead in the astral realm, because I do get a lot of people who talk about parasites, implants, entities, that kind of thing. So yes, clearing statements will work on that realm as well. So that's stating, I have a parasite, I feel it on my shoulder. I want to clear everything that's causing that to be there. If you use a question, then that can open you up in a different way. Questions are more opening you up to curiosity, opening you up to possibility. Questions are much, much more freeing, I find, and can help you have a much better clearing statement than just stating something. So if I say I have a astral parasite on my shoulder, I feel something there, maybe I see something there, and I decide it's a parasite in the astral. If it isn't a parasite in the astral realm, then your clearing statement it might not work, because you're saying, I want to clear everything that's causing that astral parasite to be there. If it isn't an astral parasite, then the clearing statement might not work. If instead you use a question, what is it that's causing that uncomfortableness on my shoulder? Everything that is, and everything that's maintaining that and causing that, I will clear it, delete. So you're using a question. What is it that's causing that? Rather than coming to a conclusion. The minute you come to a conclusion about something, you immediately are not including all of the other possibilities of what it could be. So questions are very, very useful in that respect. So what is it that's causing my knee arthritis? Everything that is, everything that's maintaining it, everything that's causing it, everything that's stopping me from allowing that to change, I will delete that. Delete. Much more useful, isn't it? Much more expansive and encompassing. So let's get on to the style of clearing statement I used in the demon clearing statements I mentioned earlier on my written blog on my website that were very popular. So the style of clearing statement I used there was designed by Access Consciousness. So Access Consciousness is a group of people that question reality. So they constantly use the question to change things for the better in their reality. There's more to it than that, of course, as I'm sure people who know Access Consciousness know about. It's all about expanding and exploring and, consciousness. So Gary Douglas, the person who started off Access Consciousness, has a very particular way. He designed a particular way of doing a clearing statement. And a lot of people, when they first come across it, may think that it sounds a bit strange and a bit gobbledygook, but every word they use in their clearing statements has a particular meaning, targets a specific energy, if you like, and it can be quite effective. And like I've said many times in the past, in my videos and in my written material, the more people you get that believe in a certain thing, the more effective it is, because you have more of humanity, more of the collective, if you like, agreeing that that's possible. And because Access Consciousness, they've been in over 200 countries, they have practitioners and events in more than 200 countries, so there's a huge group of people doing this, all believing that it's a very powerful clearing statement the way they do it, and therefore it is a powerful clearing statement. It might not necessarily be for you, in which case find other words, such as simply using the word delete or clear. But the Access Consciousness way does seem to work very well for a lot of people that I've worked with, at least. So the Access clearing statements generally start with a question. Not always. You can say, what is it that causes my knee arthritis, and maintains it? But quite often they would prefer the question because it's more open, like I've already said. So, for example, on my knee, an Access Consciousness clearing statement would be, what is it that's causing and maintaining my knee arthritis? Everything that is, I will cancel, revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate at all times a godzillion. Good and bad, right and wrong, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay? Part of the reason why this clearing statement works quite well is because on one hand, it satisfies the ego a little bit more because you are saying, I want to cancel it, revoke it, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate it. So you're satisfying your ego that, yeah, I'm being quite specific and quite straightforward and, wanting to clear from many different ways using different words. So on one hand, the clearing statement is great in that way. On the other hand, it kind of confuses people, especially the clearing part. So instead of using the word delete, we are using good and bad, right and wrong, POD and POC, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Which, is good on a different way. Because it may not be particularly understandable, especially if you haven't read Access Consciousness stuff, because they do explain it, especially in their older material. Because it doesn't make too much sense to the conscious mind, it's quite good because it also bypasses the conscious mind. Sometimes our conscious mind won't let something go unless it understands it first. Sometimes you have to confuse it so that you can actually get at the energies, because the mind can quite often stop something from being cleared because it doesn't like what it hears. Okay, so that's why choosing words and what you say to people is quite important. Again, what I've said in previous videos, choose your words carefully, choose your words wisely. Some words might upset people. Some words might make you think that you don't believe them. Some words might make you think that, that they're stupid, whatever. Okay? So each of those words, good, bad, right, wrong, POD, POC, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds, mean something. They are clearing a certain energy from a certain dimension, whether it be this one or another dimension. You're clearing through multiple lives, multiple densities, multiple generations. All of those words are basically clearing things that you could possibly think about that could be causing the problem. Also, tons and tons of things that you wouldn't ever think of or wouldn't come to your mind, that you wouldn't think might be causing it, including from other lives, including from other generations, in the cellular memory, in the genetics, in the human energy field, in the collective consciousness, and everything beyond that we couldn't possibly think of as a human. So that's what the good, bad, right, wrong, POD, POC, or nine shorts, boys and beyonds does. So for example, the good and bad simply means everything you've judged as good about a particular belief or a particular problem, the particular issue you're having, everything you've judged as bad about it, you are clearing. Sometimes everything you judge as good about having arthritis, it gives you a story, it gives you an identity. It's something you can use as an excuse not to do something. And many, many other things that you might actually subconsciously, unconsciously believe are good about having arthritis, as well as everything you've judged as bad about it. Everything you judge as bad about having arthritis, such as not moving very well, not being able to squat down, having pain. Again, holding on to that story, holding on to that entity, also makes you resist changing it and getting better. Right and wrong, very similar. Everything that's right and wrong about it, very, very similar. POD and POC simply means the point of destruction and the point of creation. That's what that stands for. So the point of creation is the point at which that arthritis, as an example, was created. Was it a mental trauma, an emotional trauma, a physical trauma? Could be any initial cause. What was it that made you destroy yourself, in other words, in order to create that? That's the point of creation. The point of destruction is every time you've repeated you have knee arthritis, you're again strengthening the story, strengthening the identity of you having the arthritis. So the point of destruction is every time you keep mentioning it and therefore keep manifesting it and keep maintaining it. Okay, and then all those other words mean other things, some of which I've forgotten. And again, it doesn't matter because it goes into the subconscious. And yeah, Clears all the things you could possibly think of and not think of about it. It's a very powerful clearing statement. So if I go back to the parasite in the shoulder example, a good access clearing statement would be a very general one, because we're asking a question generally about it. What is it that's causing that uncomfortableness on my shoulder? Everything that is, everything that's caused it, everything that's maintaining it, I will cancel, revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate it. Times a godzillion. Good and bad, right and wrong, pod and poc, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyond. And then you might feel a release. If you wanted to be a bit more specific, everything that's causing that parasite there. And again, it may not be that. Okay? And then with clearing statements, you can use multiple for the same problem. So with the shoulder example, the general one is the best. What is it that's causing that uncomfortableness? Even if you've decided it might be a parasite, best to start with that, because it might not be. But then you might be able to ask, what stupidity am I choosing to maintain that problem on my shoulder? Everything that is, I will cancel, revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate at all times of godzillion. Good and bad, right and wrong, pod and poc, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. So in this clearing statement, it's a bit more triggering because of the words I'm using. Some people don't like it, but it triggers them more. You're calling them, or yourself, if you're using the clearing statement on yourself, stupid. Not very nice, is it? It's very triggering. In a way, it's true, because why would you want to choose to have that particular problem on your shoulder? So by calling yourself stupid, it's a bit more triggering, so that it's more likely to bring up an energy so that you can clear it. So you can play with words in many ways like this to bring up the energy and clear it more. Again, you can be more specific with your clearing statement with where you're feeling it. What is it that's causing that uncomfortableness in my supraspinatus muscle on top of my shoulder blade that I'm feeling? So you could be specific with location. And you can go even deeper with clearing statements. One of the things I notice with clearing statements is that when you go really quite strongly into something, really challenge a belief with the clearing statement, it can be very effective. So I deal with a lot of people who work, that have problems with demons, parasites, astral things, things beyond the physical world. So there's a lot of fear about demons and entities and things in the realities that most people can't see. So sometimes we need to bring up your resistance to those things in order to help you clear it. Whatever you resist persists. Yes? So a lot of people don't realize that the reason they're having a problem with entities and astral parasites is because they're resisting them. When you resist something, you slow down or stop energy from moving. And when energy doesn't move as quickly, guess what? That's a lower vibration. If you let energy move, it's a higher vibration. It becomes a higher vibration. So whether you resist something or not literally determines whether you build up denser and denser energy or not, and instead experience the higher vibrational energies. Okay. Another way of thinking about it, when you let energy flow, is it's a bit like a river. The more the river flows, the more rubbish it can clear, the more crap it can clear from the land. It's healthier that way. So some clearing statements that I have used in the past are quite strong to make you realize how much you resist entities and demons, how much you fear them. So I will give you a very good example here. And maybe some of you will understand it, maybe some of you won't understand it. But the clearing statement is this. What is it that's stopping me from being the demon bitch or bastard from hell that I truly be? Everything that is, I will cancel, revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate at all times a godzillion. Good and bad, right and wrong, put and pock, all nice, shorts, boys, and beyond. So the question part of it was, what is it that's stopping me from being the demon bitch or bastard from hell that I truly be? Now that's a very triggering question, isn't it? Because you're asking, what's stopping me from being the demon bitch from hell? And some people might interpret that clearing statement is trying to get someone to be the demon bitch or bastard from hell. That's not what this question is about. This question is designed to bring up everything that makes you resist demon bitches and bastards from hell, so that you can stop fighting them, stop resisting them, and therefore not become one. Remember what I said earlier, whatever you resist persists. If you keep fighting against something you don't like, don't be surprised if you start to become more and more and more and more like the thing you are fighting against. This statement is very powerful because it really creates a reaction in you because of how the ego responds to that question. And therefore, it really brings up those energies that make you resist evil so that you can clear it and therefore not be evil. Does that make sense? It also highlights a lot of the very deep spiritual practices and teachings of Eastern philosophers and meditators. You know, realizing that you are that as well, otherwise you wouldn't see it in the outside world. But that's a subject for another day. Okay. So yeah, very powerful, can be very effective for some people more than others. You don't have to use really triggering things like the clearing statement I just did. If you feel that that's not the way you want to go, if you feel it helps you focus too much on what you don't want to, maybe that's not a clearing statement for you using that particular question. But play around with it. You can word things in many, many different ways. Play around with how you ask the question, because different questions can bring up different energies and help you clear from different angles. So you might like to, for example, if you want to work on your abundance, use multiple questions. Questions about how your parents felt about money. Questions about what makes you think that money's evil or that money is good. So there's many, many different things that can come into a particular subject. And when you're working with someone, you may move from one question to another quite naturally because of picking up on something or them saying something. So if you have someone that wants to work on their limiting beliefs surrounding being able to speak their truth, speak up around people, ask, for something, for example, you might start with questions about what is it that's stopping me from saying no to people? What is it that's stopping me from asking for what I want? What is it that's stopping me from being able to talk openly with my parents? Many, many questions like that. And those questions lead on to obvious things. Okay, what was it that caused me to have a rift between my mother and myself? If you are having issues talking with family members, for example. And then you could go into that trauma. You could go into different body parts. So if you felt powerless when you were younger, maybe your mother or father said no to you constantly, didn't allow you to be in your own power, explore being the person you wanted to be when you were a toddler. That age when you start saying no, I want to do this. And maybe your parents overpowered you and didn't let you be the person you wanted to be. So maybe the questions might go into that particular trauma. What was it that made me give up? What was it that made me feel uncomfortable at that time? Or if you aren't sure about the particular cause of the trauma, then you can ask, what was it that caused that trauma? What was it that made me start not being able to speak up and ask for things and express what I truly want? And then you can go into the subject of power, couldn't you? Because you feel powerless if you can't speak up. So you can ask questions along the line of, what is it that makes me feel powerless? What is it that makes me feel like I can't create the life I wish? What is it that stops me from being able to receive from this reality all that I need to build the life I want? What is it that makes me believe that other people, beings and things have power over me or can control me or influence me in a way that stops me from being the person I truly wish to be? And if you know about certain beliefs and emotions and how they relate to certain organs, you might go into that, especially if they have issues in the physical body. So with power issues, you might want to ask, okay, what is it that's causing all that I sense in my liver? Because the liver is all about building the body. It takes all the nutrients you digest from elsewhere. And it also helps in digestion, of course, helps you break down things, especially fats. And takes all those nutrients you digest and breaks them down into other things that you can use to make other things that helps build your body. It helps maintain the vitality of the blood, so you have lots of energy. It helps break down blood cells. It helps detoxify things, so things that are toxic you make non-toxic, so it's very defensive in that way. But it's also a factory. It interconverts things, it stores things. The liver is an amazing organ. It does many, many, many different things in the physical body. So likewise, it very much relates to your beliefs about how you can build your life, and therefore how much power you believe you have. And because power is always about relating to other people, because our beliefs of how much power we have or not is always in relation to someone or something else. It could be a law, it could be, resources like money, how you relate to other things. So you could ask about the liver. And what is it that's making you choose to eat certain foods that don't support the liver? So as you can see, one question, one belief is built on top of another belief, which is built on top of another belief. And so you can follow the line of questioning to go deeper and deeper and explore different avenues that might be contributing to the problem you are working on. Okay. I've talked quite a bit now. I hope you get the gist of how a clearing statement works, how you can word them, how you can use them generally as well as specifically, how you can use them to explore other beliefs or other traumas or other effects that might be causing a particular problem, and use clearing statements for those too. I will put a link to the demon clearing statements down below because I know they're quite popular, so that people can find them. And yeah, that's it for today. I'll try and stop talking. But please do leave a like and subscribe if you want to support this channel, and feel free to leave comments or questions below on how clearing statements have affected you or how you might use them. And I will see you in the next video.